Welcome back to Hold My Banner, and as you can see, Celtics-Niang is sending out some spiritual energy, trying to get Georges Niang traded with a video of Pascal Siakam rolling his eyes back before Game 6 of the NBA Finals this year.
Holy crap.
Oh my gosh, all right,
That
Kasey.
is some real Emily Rose looking eyes if I've ever seen them. I chose to wait for a natural reaction to that, so that is why I needed Ountae to bring the energy on what that meant, because that's terrifying. But yeah, you're talking about real diehard rituals there to trade
they're
this
speaking
man.
that. You talk about speaking stuff into existence. They're spiritually speaking things into existence.
Hold that banner. Okay, but really quick. So Celtics-Niang obviously wants a trade here. Can you unpack this just like a little further for me, or any fans that are just looking at the scope of this situation and not understanding what is this?
I mean, okay, first of all, I have to start off with Georges Niang is from Lawrence. So he's from Massachusetts originally.
He's a Mass boy.
He is.
Okay.
And, you know, I think Celtics fans are just a little upset with them because they don't forget. They're petty, like me and Travis. But they don't forget.
Y'all fit the DNA, hence why you're here.
Yes. And so, you know, they remember back when he was on the 76ers, he grabbed Jaylen Brown's knee on the bench randomly out of nowhere. Like, Jaylen Brown went towards the bench. He held his knee back so that he couldn't get back on the court, and Jaylen Brown had to chirp at him and say some things. And then going back to last year during the NBA Cup, you know, Jason Tatum had an opportunity to, you know, go one-on-one against Georges Niang. He dropped him to the floor, made him touch earth, as we like basketball players like to say, touch earth. And after he hit the shot, he hit him with the, you know, F out of here, F out of here. You know what I'm saying? So the Celtics players have shown, at least the two heads of the monster have shown that they don't really like this guy. And so, you know, Boston Celtics fans are always going to roll with the Jays on anything. So
the Jays over the G. This is great tea. Thank you for that.
Yes.
I wasn't fully informed on the earth and all of those things, but I knew that the minute that this news broke, like, the internet didn't do what it typically does when we get Boston Celtics news, and it was very much like we're doing what? I saw eyeballs. I saw a number of things. I didn't do my investigative journalism at the time. All right, so we got the temperature check on that.
Yes.
Jumping ahead, we got Metro Busman, 8620. I had a lot of love for this username, apparently, on Anfernee Simons.
Yes.
Now, I'm not understanding some of the extra, I don't want to call it hate, but I'm getting different degrees of welcome for Simons here. Celtic fan from Blazerland, I had to say it, guys, sorry here. Simons is a bit more controversial than Bostonians seem to realize. Maybe he can be reformed. We always like a reforming opportunity.
Yes,
but he clashed with Billups and teammates about his lack of effort on defense. That's highlighted and underlined for me. Not passing the ball. No, kid, you're not going to come here and do that. Putting up stupid shots at critical moments.
Yes.
All right, I'll start. Does this concern me? If you don't have the right attitude, I already don't mess with you on a human level.
Right.
On a teammate level, that's the best way to start becoming a mental fracture to a locker room. And we just talked about what the mental might be for this Boston Celtics locker room.
Yes.
Now you give me the tea on George, or Georges Niang, whatever he calls himself, and I'm concerned if reading this.
Yes.
What can you add to this?
Look, here's what I'm going to say. You have to understand the mind of a player who's gone through the things that he's went through.
Age.
This is the first kid to come out of high school in years of NBA basketball. He was drafted out of high school. Then he comes onto a team with two NBA stars at the time, CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard. And he spends his time, and he takes the time to learn under these dudes. He doesn't complain. He doesn't moan. He understands, hey, these are two NBA All-Stars in front of me. I'm going to put in the work. I'm going to do everything I can to learn out of these guys. And guess what? I told you before. He comes in and he plays exactly like a young Damian Lillard on the offensive end. He's not as good. He's not as talented, but he does a lot of the same things. He shoots the ball from deep.
The characteristics are there.
He plays off the ball screens really, really well. You can see that he's a product of being around a CJ McCollum and a Damian Lillard. Now, after going through that and playing with those teams and being there for a lot of those big game shots that we were talking about with Dame and all this other stuff, you go from that to going to, which some people, I'm not saying it myself, but some people call one of the worst coaches in the NBA in Chauncey Billups.
Okay.
And then you're surrounded by young guys who have no idea what it takes to win an NBA game.
I see.
And then you put on top of the fact that he's in rainy Portland every day. If you're that guy, eventually you're going to get tired of being in the monotony of being in Portland and not winning year in and year out.
Right.
If I'm him, no offense to the other guys on the team, but I'm looking around and I'm saying, man, I can really fill it up. Why would I throw it to Donovan Mitchell in the post? He's not going to do anything with it. You know what I'm saying? Why would I swing it to Scoot Henderson knowing that he can't really shoot the ball right now in his development?
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? These are some of the great young players that Portland has and are going to make their ways and their strides to get there. But he wants to win.
Yeah.
So he's going to try to do things that helps his team win the game, which means sometimes you got to pull a Kobe and take a shot that you're not supposed to, right? Sometimes you got to do things like that to try to will your team to wins. He saw Dame do it. He saw CJ do it. And when they did it, it wasn't considered a bad shot. But for this kid, it is just because this team isn't winning. That's not fair. So I think that he has some ability to learn, to grow, to accept the fact that, hey, I'm with a championship-winning team now. Culture, franchise, not just a team, a franchise. 18 championships, most in NBA history. If he does get a chance to play for this Boston Celtics team, I think that he will try to play the right way.
Okay, I actually really like the insight on that, because when you point out the potential controversy around what people think of this head coach, you come out of high school, you know, the rarity of that, consider the stars that you're being compared to be able to be pulled out of high school, drafted out of high school, but more importantly, Portland, just describing that. We just saw Drew Holiday, who looked far from excited to even roll up it there. And he's at least a veteran in this league that has the accolades under his belt to just be like, all right, this is the next chapter of my career. All of that into context. Maybe sometimes some of that selfish shooting was the fact that he doesn't agree with the looks that his coach was seeing.
Right.
And when you're constantly in a rebuild, a real rebuild, you're going to get so frustrated, because how do you sharpen your game when you're consistently being thrown in the same slew of you know what, and then you have to sit there and pretend that you're bought into something that you don't agree with? That has so many more layers of frustration and toughness to it.
And the franchise that clearly didn't have that much investment in you, they gave up on you for a dude, you know, who's 37 and falling apart at this point. No offense to Drew, I love Drew.
Right.
But like,
we know
you know what I'm saying? So, all right, what's the next one?
All right, NBA PB. You know what?
Yeah, no. PBA update.
There we go.
8-3, 3-8, whatever.
A lot of things. A lot of things. On the Celtics needs, trade Hauser, Tillman for future, in all caps, first round pick. A bunch of big eye emojis. Do I agree?
I'm going to be quick for you on this one. No, I don't agree. I don't.
Why did I know that's where you were going?
Like, for one future first round pick, like, here's the thing. The Celtics have done a great job with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown as far as first round picks go. But first round picks are hit or miss. You know what I'm saying? And then you're going to trade them to who? Who knows what that pick is going to be? It might be 20s. It might be lottery. You know what I'm saying? I would assume that a team in the lottery who thinks they could be in the lottery in the future years is not going to trade for Tillman and Hauser. No offense. Tillman hasn't done anything here in Boston, so his trade stock is down. I think he's a really good player, and I think that he's a player that could help a team in the NBA. He just didn't fit what the Boston Celtics were trying to do, which is fine. Hauser, I also think, is a really good player, but I don't think a team that's a contending team would trade a first-round pick for this. And then I don't think that a team that is non-contending would trade for this either. So it's kind of a wash. Okay,
we're lockstep. I think that it's kind of a waste of a conversation, considering what I learned about the NBA draft, the different guests that we had on to break things down. John Fanta made it clear, like, if you're not picking 1 through 10 realistically, you're not really getting somebody NBA ready, and there's still a question mark next to it. Then you're talking about a completely different conversation, which I never would have guessed once you get below 10, especially considering the industry I come from. I'm like, holy crap, it's narrow to make sure that you're going to have an impact player right away and that you're not relying on your development system there. So you might think that between the name Hauser and Tillman that you're, bargaining low, but you can't ask for a future first round pick and not make it make sense and be a payout. We're both giving that a thumbs down. Love you, though. Next, we got on the Celtics offseason moves. Power forward and the center is missing GM Brad Stevens. Let me emphasize, GM Brad Stevens is in all caps, which means he is yelling at the GM to hear him out here. What is one power forward and one center you would like to see the Celtics target?
I'll tell you. So shout out Alvin for this question, because it's a good question, and we've talked about the front court depth in nauseum at this point. I would like to see them try to go acquire Chris Boucher from the Toronto Raptors. He's a free agent this year. Somebody brought up Bol last episode, and I was like, no.
What?
But he's like a better version of Bol. I mean, this is a 10 points a game guy. Shoots 36% from the three. This is a near 7-footer. This is a guy that does a lot of KP things. You know what I'm saying? And if we're gonna go out and get a power forward or whatever, it's gonna be by committee. It seems like, at least for a little bit. Why not give this guy a shot? I think he needs probably a 1-year prove-it deal anyways, and this will give him an opportunity to be on a team that should be a team that makes the playoff or whatever, and he can show that he's willing to play winning basketball. So why not?
Okay, so I'm going to throw some names out there. You can give me a quick thumbs up or down, or just tell me to completely hold my banner. Names at the center position that are being tossed around for off-season free agent pickups. Thomas Bryant, Indiana.
Nah, I'm all right.
You're all right. Okay. Isaiah Jackson, Indiana.
I kind of like Isaiah Jackson. I think he'd be a good fit here.
All right. We're not too mad about that. DeAndre Jordan, Denver.
No, heck no. He's ancient. He's older than dinosaur bones. Jesus Christ.
Okay, moving on. Christian Koloko?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's in the same kind of realm. He's like a young,
potential,
lanky. Same build as a Chris Boucher.
Yeah, you got to grow into your body. I don't have time.
I like Christian Koloko, but I'm good.
Okay, and then Precious
Achiuwa.
Achiuwa out of New York.
Yeah, I think Precious brings a lot of good energy. I think he brings a lot of the things that Brad was talking about. A guy who wants to fight, claw, and try to win basketball games. So knowing Brad's philosophy, I'm good with that.
Okay, so at least 3 out of the names that I mentioned
those are some
there.
Good names.
You didn't do the Twitch, and those are the center positions with some free agents, which I only mentioned them just considering, again, price point, bargaining, negotiation, and how they can potentially help.
Can I throw out a center?
Oh, please.
Because I threw a power forward.
My bad.
Please, Al. Please come back and help this ball. Please, Al.
You know what's funny about you saying that? I completely skipped that name on the list.
Al, please come back and help the Celtics team for just 1 year, dog, and then you can retire into the sunset.
Dude,
and then we can put your name in the rafters, because that's what the Celtics do for every single player that's done remotely anything here. So, Al, come back, please. And then if not, then I threw out a trade last episode. People can go watch it for Walker Kessler. I would like to see Walker Kessler.
You've mentioned that name a couple times.
Utah Jazz.
Yeah.
For a future, like building towards the future when Jason Tatum comes back, blah, blah, blah. Great big out of Auburn.
All right, we'll talk about a 3-year umbrella. I skipped that name on purpose because I did not think that we were getting that level of bargaining. Al, please. I mean, after that performance, you owe it to the man.
Yes.
One more go. All right. Philip Hart, 6'3", 2'7". What up, Philip? On the Celtics future, I keep thinking 25-26 is the flyer year. 26-27 is the year to what?
Coalescence. I had to learn that word today.
Okay.
Thank you, Philip, for that.
Kasey got a vocabulary education there.
Yeah.
And in summer 27, add a big name and go for it, 27-28. I love the breakdown here.
Coalesce. There we go.
Coalesce, yeah. Coalesce. I left it to you to do all of that. Players potentially available in 2027. Now, I can understand where Philip is coming from because these names are sexy. You got Antetokounmpo, you've got the Joker, you've got Curry, although, we'll get back to age in a minute. Anthony Towns, Donovan Mitchell, Donick, and then Trae Young.
And Trae Young, yeah. I mean, I put all of those names on there for you to look at. Age, yes, it's Steph Curry though. Like we're what are we talking about? Steph Curry 2 years from now.
I can't argue it because
Steph is Steph. He's running around screens, he's shooting threes. It's Steph. You know what I mean? He's gonna be a good player at that age.
He's one of those guys that doesn't really age out.
I think it'll be 38, 39. In the 27-28 season or something like that.
But can he play a whole season?
LeBron's 40.
I know, but how many times has Stephen Curry been injured?
You're right.
You know what I mean?
You're right.
I'm all for it. Walked into the nephew's bedroom and it was Steph Curry photos everywhere. That's who Albert Neal Lacy III wanted to be. I wanted to be the supportive Titi, but then I'm like, okay, he's out again?
He won't be here because the Warriors won't allow that.
That's true.
But if the Boston Celtics had an opportunity, Steph, I think, quickly, just looking at the names that you brought up, Giannis, Jokic, those would be the ones we're really
to see them in a Celtics jersey would be disturbing.
I don't think Luka's going to come. Cat and Donovan Mitchell could be some good options down the line. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know why I'm like twitching towards Donovan Mitchell.
I know. I think people are down on him.
Okay, whatever.
But whatever. And then Trae Young, I don't think Boston fans want him here. We talk about offense, defense, all this other stuff. Like defensively, he's got to be one of the worst starting guards in the league, and I don't think Boston would identify with that.
He doesn't fit the DNA.
Yeah.
And we're not doing any more rentals, or at least we're trying. By 2027, I hope the Boston Celtics are no longer having rental discussions, but we'll see. And plus, speaking of what to expect from the Boston Celtics, we got to see what the young talent looks like, what some development could be looking like, which brings us to a summer league conversation. So don't go anywhere.